Get Pucked. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Get Pucked podcast. Matt, Dave, Vito, and Luca here, and we are currently recording during the NHL Draft. So bear with us if we decide to interrupt anybody at any given time if something crazy happens. But we wanted to do this during the draft in case if something fun were to happen so we can get our reactions live. That said, while we did plan to do it today, something rather sensational happened. Perhaps it would be the word to use prior to the draft. The Canadiens made a trade. And it is a significant one, I think.
I was going to say just the trade. They just made a trade.
Pretty significant. We had talked on this podcast a few episodes ago that the New York Islanders, Noah Dobson, would be an interesting target. And I'm certain the Montreal Canadiens management were paying attention, listened to us, assessed, and went from that moment on and decided to do their own research and ultimately led to a trade happening today where the Montreal Canadiens acquired Noah Dobson for the 16th and 17th overall pick in this year's draft, so happening right now, as well as Emil Heineman. So probably nobody saw that coming. Let us discuss, gents. There also, of course, needs to be said that with that trade came the baked-in 8-year deal at a 9.5 average. So that is already done. It's all concluded. That's what he's going to get paid. That's the term. Initial reactions. Well, maybe not initial reactions, but what do you guys think about this? Do you like the term? Do you like the money? Do you like the trade? Do you like the need that it meets? Let me hear. Let me hear. Which one wants to start? Who's loaded up? Luca.
All right. Let's go. I'm very happy with the trade, the term, everything. He's a big, mobile, offensive defenseman. He's right-handed shot. He's fantastic. It's exactly what we need. He's one of the better defensemen in the league. You know, it was a blockbuster trade, and the term is fantastic. Anybody that's complaining about the term doesn't understand what's happening in the next few years with the cap. Because in 2-3 years, that $9.5 million is going to be equivalent to like $6-7 million to today's standards, is what I mean. So I don't see anything wrong with the trade. For me, it's a slam dunk.
Slam dunk.
Yeah.
Luca goes with slam dunk. Dave?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find anything wrong with the trade, right? Like the speculation was what the return, what it was going to cost to get Noah Dobson. I think the price is very reasonable. I think it's lower than what everybody pretty much expected. And I think at this time, you just solidified your top 4 defensive pairing for pretty much the next however many years. I mean, it's actually, obviously Reinbacher has to develop. Hudson has to continue developing. There's a lot of what ifs in there, but I mean, it looks absolutely solid on paper. Your top 4 looks absolutely stacked. And I'm of the belief that a top 4, a good top 4, a good solid defenseman are the new good goaltenders in the NHL. And you need that to win the cup. And that's pretty much what I think is happening here. I think you can't ask for a better, 6 defensemen right now than what the Canadiens have put together. And I think that it's pretty impressive. And I can't wait to see how it pans out and who slots where. And it gives them a lot of wiggle room if they want to deal another one of it, because there's so many defensemen on the roster and in the pipeline. It makes it for some exciting times. But Noah Dobson is an absolute home run, and the term is fine. The price, it looks a little bit more expensive at first glance, especially
on the surface. Yeah, okay.
Especially you see the year he had last year, but at the end of the day, you expect a guy like that who's put up 70 points to bounce back, and I think that it's not an unreasonable number. As Lucas said, cap's going up. I think it'll be fine, but it's absolutely an absolute home run.
All right, Vito, tell us why you hate it.
I don't. I was the one advocating for it
I know.
I was the one saying that Dobson would change the whole back end for the Montreal Canadiens. They wouldn't have to worry about the defense for the next 7 to 8 years, really, when you think of it. They're going to – it doesn't rush Reinbacher anymore on the right side. The right side, which is the hardest position from the defenseman on a roster to basically address. Most teams pay a premium to just get right-hand defensemen because they're rare to come by, especially ones that are 25 years old, 6'4", mobile. Have put up 70-point seasons and were among the best goal scoring defensemen in the NHL. This is definitely a home run for the Montreal Canadiens. This is just what is there to hate? There's nothing to hate. You're gonna have some Islanders fans that are gonna try to throw some shade towards it and whatnot, and that's fine. They're upset and rightfully so. If the shoe was on the other foot, we would be upset. But it's not. For once, the Montreal Canadiens, their name was in the rumor mill for a particular superstar or a star player, and they come out with the star player. In the past, we would be looking and say they leveraged Montreal, they used Montreal to get the price up and things of that nature. This time, no. Montreal won the sweepstakes for a specific player, and it just happens to be the guy that was rumored a while back. There was smoke around him about being available. At some points you heard it about Vancouver and potentially being for Elias Pettersson or in a package for Elias Pettersson. Then you heard it somewhere along the lines with Toronto and maybe something with Mitch Marner there. And there was always a good fit for Montreal, and you could definitely see where you could slot Dobson in, but we didn't know if it was going to ever happen for sure for the Montreal Canadiens. We always, as Habs fans, protected ourselves from the potential disappointment because of what's happened in the past. But even the cap, 9.5, nothing wrong with that, with the cap going up. Like Lucas said, in a few years from now, it's going to be equivalent to about a mid-$7 million contract. It's a full term 8 years. Last year he had a down year, but if you go look at his advanced metrics and the stats and whatnot, his defensive game actually improved. Yes, he did have quite a few turnovers, but there's other elements of his game that improved versus just the offensive side, and clearly he wasn't happy. There's something there going on with Patrick Roy and whatnot, and the coaching and the style of game just didn't work well with him. That's why he didn't want to commit to a long-term contract in New York Islanders, among probably other reasons. But the obvious reasons, or the reasons that came out, made it so that it was time for him to move on, and to Montreal's benefit.
I mean, I think ultimately at this point, you either have to know very little about hockey, or, to your point, Vito, perhaps be a disgruntled Islanders fan to look at this and say that the Canadiens made a mistake. This is a coveted, right-handed, top 4, top pairing defenseman of the right age, of a proper term. You get the full 8 years, which apparently, based on what we're hearing, is not going to be something that can even happen very soon with the change to the agreement. The collective bargaining agreement amongst the players and the ownership. The money comes in under 10. I think a lot of people were thinking if this was going to happen, 10 was going to be the number. It's under 10. Yeah, to Dave's point, maybe on paper, on the surface, in the flat cap kind of era, it would have been like, wow, that's high. But it's all percentage based now, and everything is going to be incrementally scaled back based on how the cap is going to continue to rise up. So people that have problems with that need to look into that a bit more and get a little bit more educated. I think because perhaps many people don't understand that. They see a big number and they're like, oh, he's the highest paid Canadian right now. Yes, that is true. But fundamentally, you got to look at how it is worked as a percentage. Not going to get into whole numbers. Really want to talk more about the player himself. And this guy is a stud, man. This is a top defenseman in the league. This guy can put up numbers. He had a down year, and I think that worked out to the Canadiens' favor because of that, for whatever his reasons. And ultimately, this solidifies that back end. The more interesting thing now, because I'm not going to continue down, I agree, I think we've all said the same thing, is what does the addition of Noah Dobson do to some of the other guys that are presently on the team? I'm thinking guys like Mike Matheson. I'm thinking, you mentioned Ryan
There's
Bacher.
no place for Mike Matheson anymore.
Okay, so we're in agreement. There needs to be, and Mailloux and these guys. So clearly there's something that now needs to follow, yes?
Yeah, I would think so. Montreal currently is over the cap, not by as much as you'd see on Puckpedia or whatnot, because there's about 3 players like Owen Beck that are currently up listed on the roster, and Logan Mailloux, and guys who basically go to Laval. So at the moment, I think the Canadiens are about, assuming that Ryan Bacher would start with the team and everything would stay as is, they're about $1.7 million over. So if you look at it, Mike Matheson's kind of fallen out. There's not really a spot for him on the left side with Lane Hudson, Gooley, Jack Eye there at the moment. Maybe they'll re-sign Struble. We don't know. But so where would you slot him? He didn't do very well on the right side, and you don't want to keep playing Lane Hudson on the right side. So if the left side is completely addressed at this point, and the right side is addressed with Noah Dobson there, Carey, and likely Reinbacher, then the only logical thing is that Mike Matheson is on the move. They're going to likely move him. His 1-year deal at 4.875 is very attractive for a lot of teams. They could fit him in pretty easily. And there's a lot of teams out there that are looking for a puck-moving offensive defenseman who can likely slot in on their second pairing and at times even play on the first pairing without an issue. So I think he's basically going to be gone this year. I don't think Kent Hughes is going to necessarily trade him just to trade him. But if all signs are pointing to he's likely gone, and he was a good Montreal Canadian for while he was here, but peace out.
Yeah, but Dave, do you agree with that assessment that you think it's Matheson through and through, or do you think it's more probable that maybe one of the guys, the young guys, are easier move out? The Mayus, for example. I really don't think it'd be Reinbacher, but something like that more plausible. Or are you in agreement that it's Matheson and he's not going to lace it up?
I just don't see where Matheson slots in, barring an injury. Like I don't see where he could fit in unless you start moving guys to the other side. Like I don't want to see that again. So if I'm Ken Hughes, I'm looking to move Mike Matheson. Mike Matheson's not gonna. I don't think you're gonna hold your breath for the return on Mike Matheson. I don't think he's gonna get that much of a return. I think you're moving him out to move him out, and then you're gonna try to maybe move a Mayu or someone like that while their value is still high. And perceived value is supposedly still high, and you're going to try to move Mayu out and try to fill your holes, because I mean they technically have 2 centers to go get, one for sure, but at least another, maybe 2, depending on what happens. That's a lot of guys that you have to bring in. Maybe you're going to have to get creative in how you do it, and it's just that there's a logjam there created, which is always a good thing. The whole too many of a good thing is a good thing, but at the end of the day, I think Mike Matheson's time with the Canadiens has ended, and I just don't see him starting the year with this team. I think they're going to try to move him to a team that makes sense for him. I think they'll do him right, and they'll move on from him there. And then it gets you don't necessarily want to move Mayu just in terms of depth. Like you still want to have those depth options, but there's other options there as well. And Mayu, to me, is a tad overrated. So you can, and people seem to value him in the NHL right now. So I think you can move him for
I think his value is boosted because he's a right-handed defenseman.
Exactly.
And he's a young one who can be offensive, who can be quite offensive. And if you pair him with a shutdown guy and the big body that he is, there's a lot of things to like about Mayu. So I can see what's attractive. Yeah, and I can see what makes him an attractive piece. I do disagree with you that I don't think many teams are going to be into Matheson, or maybe it won't.
I didn't say many teams,
or it won't return, or you won't get the return that you'd expect. I mean, there's.
What return would you expect for Matheson?
I don't think he'd be like the piece that would go and get you. For example, there's rumors that Montreal's still looking for a top 6 player that it's going to go get you a Jordan Kyrou alone. You'd have to put Matheson in something else, let's say, and build a package around that where it addresses multiple needs. Sure. For the opposing team, right? But a 1-for-1, no, I don't think Matheson would draw a crazy return 1-for-1 unless it's a late first round pick is possible. If that's what Montreal's coveting is a late first round pick, something to like LA for their 24th this year, if that even gets to that point. Right now, as we're watching, they just the 3rd pick has been selected, and that's done. So we have a long way to go to find out if Montreal's trading for anybody.
I mean, buyer beware. I wouldn't probably not trade a first round pick for Mike Matheson if I'm an NHL general manager.
There's been worse defensemen players who have been traded for late firsts than Mike Matheson, who basically posted up 60 points a year ago.
I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm saying I would be pleasantly surprised if that happened.
I think we undervalue him. I think the rest of the league values him a lot more than we do.
That's fair.
Possibly.
That is fair. Yeah. That is fair.
Possibly. I mean, maybe. I don't know. It's tough. I think he was overvalued for a long time here, and then maybe you're right about the undervalue thing. But I think the truth sits there somewhere in the middle, and I just don't see him getting that much of a return that he would have got. Obviously,
teams have pressure. Right. The timing is probably right about him, and I mean, he's not like. if you look at his last season or just in general his body of work in the NHL, there are some obvious moments where you're like, how did you just do that? The defensive gaps sometimes in his play is just like unbelievable.
The turnovers.
But
I attribute Matt.
He is a point producer, and he is a very, very solid defenseman, and he's not on a contract that isn't digestible.
The contract is a very attractive.
There is a lot, in my opinion, that you can go and try to sell him. He's not that old. In addition, it's not like he's a 38, 39-year-old and he's still trying to beat that drum one more time. This is a very serviceable defenseman. He might have fallen out of favor, and clearly I'm in agreement with you. I don't think he has a spot in the lineup anymore here, especially now that the Dobson trade is done. But
that's the thing. That's the thing. He fell out of favor not because the Habs don't like him or not because they can't use his skill set. He fell out of favor because everybody that's on the in their top four is going to be their core players. They're part of their core.
I'm going to disagree with that. I think he fell out of favor when Lane Hudson became the power play specialist. I think,
but again, that's what I'm saying. It was part of their core. It's part of the people they drafted that just you could slot them in, right? I always looked at Matheson as a stopgap for whoever else was going to come, whether it was an acquisition or a draft or even Lane Hudson at the time. So now the stopgap is over. Lane Hudson proved it that he can take on a bigger responsibility. Now, bring in Dobson, who definitely has been taking on a bigger responsibility on another team. And then, you have Gouli, who could continue playing his two-way game, barring any injury and whatnot. So Matheson, if those guys weren't there, if Lane Hudson wasn't ready, we probably wouldn't be talking about maybe moving Matheson. They'd just say, okay, Lane Hudson, keep doing what you're doing, and Matheson still slots and gets miscast and eating up more minutes than he should be. And
you're basically saying exactly what it is that I was saying, which is it's you have pieces here that have just passed him on the chart. It doesn't make him a bad defenseman. It doesn't mean that he has no value. Perhaps to your point, like you guys are saying, Luca, you agree or disagree with me on this one. Like 1-for-1, I don't know if you get a first. It's a weird NHL now. This isn't the trade deadline. This isn't like a Ben Sherratt was a couple of years back. You're like, oh my God.
If you don't mind me jumping in right there, because this goes back to when I was saying it was perfect timing. The perfect timing is that it's been widely known that whatever's happening this year, teams are coveting more roster players more so than the picks of this actual draft this year.
Yeah.
So because they're coveting more roster players, guy like Mike Matheson at the age of 31, who's basically at a minimum a 40-point producer. And if you slot him on the second pairing and, take away some of the miscast responsibilities that he had with Montreal, you have a very good player at under $5 million.
Like very good, I think.
Yeah.
Especially if you pair him with somebody who's a little bit more defensively sound, wherever he might be going, right? That can cover up some of those, a little bit more aggressive forechecks that he might do or whatever the case might be in the defensive end. Like,
I don't even think he's that bad. I think he made those mistakes because he was playing 23, 24, and 25 minutes a game. If he was playing more around that 18, 19 to 20 minutes a game, like a second pairing guy would, you'd probably see a lot less of those turnovers and mistakes.
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, I guess.
Sorry, Luca.
Yeah. Now I forgot what I even asked him. I don't even remember where we were going with it. But
I think you asked me if I would agree or disagree if he would get a first round pick in return.
Yeah,
I think he would. I think it would.
1-for-1.
That's surprising coming from Luca, who doesn't like Matheson as a player.
I don't like Matheson, but again, like I said, we undervalue him as a player because he's on the team. But we also all saw that the return for Dobson has to be at least Ryan Backer. Everybody was saying it's going to be Ryan Backer or at least a very good prospect, and it ended up being Heineman. So I really think if anybody could get it done for a first-round pick, it's definitely Kent Hughes.
So, and this is at this point of the recording where we're at now, which is already several hours removed from the news that this Dobson trade occurred. The official announcement from the league that the trade went through has not happened as of this moment. No. Let's assume that it has, and nothing crazy is going to happen. That means that Montreal will not have a pick in the first round at this moment in time. Luca, do you think it's imperative that they try and trade to get back into the first, or should they continue maybe down the path of exploring ways to get themselves all attention on a roster player, trying to fill that 2C more than anything?
Definitely 2C. it would be really fun if they also got a first-round pick. And the only reason why I'm hopeful for that is because apparently Carey Price is in the building, and why else would he be in the building?
Maybe to announce something for San Jose. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
I mean,
you got Bevan who goes up and says we have a trade to announce. San Jose's there for the pick, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Carey Price is traded to San Jose."
On the jersey and
he puts the jersey on and makes an announcement. No, that'd be nuts. In fact, I don't think does San Jose have more than the second overall? They've already
yes, they've got one at 30.
Okay.
So
That would be if he went up with a Habs jersey and took it off and had the teal underneath. I think that'd be
Easy there, WWE.
It would be an all-timer. But no, that is clearly not going to happen.
No.
You know what? It's an interesting thing you say. I mean, listen, the trade went down. Like I'm saying, at this point, we're a quarter to 8:00 at night. The draft again is ongoing now. The trade happened only mere hours ago. I assume this was already, hey, Carey, get over there. If it doesn't happen, we're going to make some picks. We'd like you to be there. And I'm sure he didn't mind doing it. So I don't know. But it is interesting because when was the last time? I don't have the answer. So I don't know if you guys do or not. When was the last time the Habs haven't picked in the first round? It's been several years, of course, we know that much. But do we have any idea how long it's been? A lot of people seem to be bummed out by this, which I find fascinating. People have been clamoring about having a good team on the ice.
I think people are excited about the draft, right? They want to watch. Yeah. They want to watch their team draft. It makes the night kind of move just watching other teams. I think that's the point. But in the long run and the bigger picture, I think it's a great. It's a good thing that they have. So let me just check here.
Yeah,
they did not have one. I mean, you have to go far back.
I think it's a very long.
2008. It looks like.
Really?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
So. I mean, ultimately, yeah. I mean, I see people upset about it, and they're like, they should be focusing on trying to get back in the first round and everything like that. I mean,
I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah,
I just don't get it.
2008, and you know what? Given how well 2007 went, it's okay. They could have gone without 2008.
They got Pacioretty, 2007.
Pacioretty, McDonough, and Subban in that draft.
Yeah.
Not too shabby.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just why. What's the focus on getting a late first, especially a late first round pick? It's such a crapshoot of is it going to be even an NHL player? Just forget about that. Move on. Try to figure out who's going to be your 2C and potentially your 3C, and focus on that. I think that's the next moves that you're going to have to do. Maybe get some goaltending in there, and then you're all set.
I think if Montreal actually goes through the entire first round, not picking a player because they didn't manage to acquire one, but they addressed their more pressing needs. Their cupboards are full, guys. They've got the prospects. They got other prospects that are basically waiting for a spot. Now it's if they want to take the next step, it's not another prospect that's going to do it in a draft that's deemed as a weaker draft. This is the time to strike while the iron's hot. You made the playoffs. You have your center. You've got your core players signed to very reasonable contracts when considering that the cap is going up and for long term. You've addressed your defense. There's certain holes on the roster still, especially as a second center or even a backup goalie or even a fourth line winger, whatever the case may be. They're missing some pieces. Go and address that. Tell the team and basically the Montreal fan base that. When they said they're going to take the next step and they want to be an every year in year out playoff team, then go be a playoff team. And then once you become a year in year out playoff team, then go build a contender, a true contender. Go be one of those. It's time. You have all your players are 24, 25, 21. I mean, right now as it stands, even with Dobson, the Montreal Canadiens are the youngest team in the entire NHL.
Yeah. No, I think ultimately that's where the team is at, right? Which means that we should shift gears a little bit. And when we're talking about rumors that are out there, which is like my favorite time of the year when you're not actually watching them compete in like meaningful games, is this brief period of time between the draft, a couple days leading up to the draft itself, and then free agency. The rumors and things that are out there are phenomenal. But I mean, one name in particular, it's been kicked around quite a bit. Jordan Kyrou. I mean, what do you give up to try to get a guy like this? I mean, that would be an amazing get, in my opinion. You're looking at a guy, I think the past couple of years, 30 goals each season. I think he's a 70-point player.
He plays right wing. Where are you going to
He
slot?
plays the wing. So that's exactly my point.
I just don't understand where you're going to trade these assets. You're going to fill another roster spot for a guy who plays right wing. Like your top two right wings are Slav and Demidov. So where's he going to play? You're going to have to move one of them around. Like I just don't get it. It's going to cost a lot to get Jordan Kyrou, and I just don't see it. I don't see the link there at all whatsoever. Like it's. I mean, obviously, you can never have too much talent, and you could figure it out. You get Kyrou and you figure out and you slot him in, but they have other needs, in my opinion. I mean, it's a nice name to come and join, but I don't see what you do to make it work, and I don't see why.
And somebody like Jordan Kyrou means that you're going to shift, if the plan is to keep Laine for next year, is shift Laine down to the third to give him easier roles.
Yeah, but then who you're shifting to left? You're shifting Kyrou to the left. That's not where he plays, and that's not where Demidov plays. So now you're shifting one of these guys who have success on the right to the left. And
but Kyrou, even though he's a right-hand shot, shooting on his forehand more often than not probably will lead to more goals and less passes. Like they'll figure it out. Wingers are. It's easier for a winger to adjust between the two sides of the wing, left or right, than it is for them to go from being an everyday winger to a center, even though Jordan Kyrou has played as a center, right?
Yeah, we're not doing that again. No,
let me ask this kind of question. Luca, you're the one I want to ask this to, and then the other guys can answer. And we'll try to keep the players generic. If I have several guys who can fit your organizational need of a 2C, but they are like just 2Cs. You know what I mean? Like on a really great team, they're probably 3Cs, but they can be a 2C on the Habs. And you got maybe 2 or 3 of these guys, or you have a winger who is like a legit second line winger, a 70-point, 75-point guy, year in, year out, 30-goal guy.
First winger.
What do you go after if you could only make a trade for one of them?
What do I go after? Or what do I think?
What do you go after?
What do I go after?
Yes.
I would go after a 2C. I would go after a 2C. But, it's funny because recently I read that, Jeff Gordon said it in his presser that you just need a play driver, a really good play driver, and you don't need the 2C if you have a really good play driver on the second line. So that kind of makes me hesitate, but I still think I would go for a 2C. My personal opinion.
The problem with Kyrou is he has also an $8 million. You're just loading up your contracts, and you're not getting a 2C, and you're not getting a 3C. It's just like, where are you going to go get these guys afterwards? It just, to me, it'd be a nice get, and I think he'd be a spectacular player on the Canadiens. But I don't think it's an option to get even a 3C that could move up to 2C. Just go and get a 2C. Figure it out. Figure out a way to get it and do that.
What if they can't? Market right now seemingly is very.
If they can't get a 2C, I'm convinced they're just going to go into the season with Kirby Dach as their 2C again, and see how it goes. And hopefully, because apparently he's in the best shape he's ever been in since getting with the Montreal Canadiens. No. So maybe, and it's a contract year for the guy. So maybe you actually get the Kirby Dach that everyone hoped for this year, and raises his value, and you see what happens with him there. But I mean, if they feel that Kirby Dach could play the 2C role at less than $4 million for this year, and they could go and acquire something else that'll elevate that second line, then I could see them kind of doing that. If right now the 2C market, from everything we read, not only is it dry, but whoever is available would cost too much. So
hold on. I just want to interrupt for half a second because I find this hilarious. The pick right now, I think they're doing pick number 5. It's Nashville, and it's Shea Weber who's announcing it
on the golf course
from some golf course.
No,
yeah.
Gotta love those decentralized.
Already on Twitter, I'm seeing Trader.
Well, not Trader, but I mean, if I recall correctly, the last time he made a pick was Caulfield. Yeah. So, anyways, I thought that was funny.
So,
and this just one more thing because I got to get this off my chest because I mean, it is painful. It has been an hour into the NHL draft, ladies and gentlemen. We are at pick 5,
and apparently it was supposed to go faster.
This decentralized draft
The battery
is
on my laptop's gonna die before this.
terrible. I'm
It's
so
bad.
happy that
It's
this
so
isn't
bad.
going to be a thing. It is so bad. I'm sorry. I had to get it off my chest. Go ahead.
No,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Oh, it's okay. I kind of lost my train of thought at this point. Thanks a lot, Matt.
I'm sorry. But I mean, I had to mention the thing. I'm looking over and I see Shea Weber talking from a golf course. It had to be mentioned.
So
You were talking about Doc, going in with Doc and then getting a Kyrou maybe to slot in there. I understand that, but what happens if Doc's not the answer? And then now next year you have to really go get it.
then they're gonna then I would see them going with it until they address it at the trade deadline. Let's say where things are a bit more available and people are trying to teams are going to try to stock up for 2026 draft that is supposed to be one of the best drafts in since Bedard, right? So I could see the draft picks being more enticing at that point. Than
what I mean is money wise. It's just now you're shelling out all this money left and right, and you're gonna have to fit all these guys.
The money. So people will keep bringing this up. Montreal Canadiens are one of the rosters and one of the teams that over the next 2 years are shedding the most cap. They have Carey Price coming off. They got Matheson coming off. Yes and no, because I've already mentioned two that's like $15 million that's coming off the books. You've got over the next 2 years, you got Gallagher, you got Josh Anderson.
That pays Hudson. It's going to pay Hudson, and then one of them is going to pay half of Demidov. Now you have to also replace those players. You can't just like have that. That's how the Toronto Maple Leafs got into this mess. You can't just have that attitude of like, oh,
the difference with the Toronto Maple Leafs was on 4 guys. The Montreal Canadiens would be like on 8.
Okay, I get it. I understand, but there's just still a lot of you can't keep putting money to where the money has to be spread out, and you kind of have to find your needs. And I think a 2C is very, very important for this club, especially considering you don't have a 3C. It's not as if there's a 3C that could come up and like surprise you. You don't even have one yet.
Well, no, they do have a 3C, and I think they're hoping that Owen Beck is going to be that guy, or Jake Evans in the interim.
Oh my God! Like the Owen Beck thing, man. Like you can't just slot him into 3C and hope that it's going to work out well, man.
Well, they drafted this guy. They drafted this kid,
but it's going to take time. You can't put him in there.
That's why they signed Jake Evans to whatever they signed.
I get it. So now you have Jake Evans on as your 3.
It's your 4th center. That okay? Right now, I guess it'd be Oliver Kapanen if worst came to worst, or Newhook in the meantime, whatever. Right? They're not done the rebuild. They're going into the next step of it. They're coming out of it now. So you're going to still see some growing pains, but the majority of the big pieces have been addressed so far.
Yeah,
that's how fair. I see it. Right? Like it's before we were, they needed more talent in the top 6. They needed more talent on their defense. They need a right-hand defenseman. Okay, right hand has been addressed. That's done. Left side is their top 4 is addressed. Jack still has another year. We could even say that their 5 is addressed at this point. With Reinbacher there, that's a few. Like it's done. So now it's just a question of how do they address the 2C, or how do they address the left wing if Line is not part of their long-term plans?
Let's say that the Line A contract. He's playing this year. There was talks before the draft that after the draft there might be an extension coming. We'll see how that plays out. I go back to Luka again because you guys love to talk. I want Luka's opinion on this one. If we start getting into close to training camp, and at that point they didn't sign anybody because they're going to bring maybe 1 or 2 guys up from Laval, and they're going to go with Doc as your 2C. And realistically, the only change is that they brought in Dobson. Maybe they unload Matheson. Let's pretend he got traded for, I don't know, a pick, right? So we don't have to figure out the player. Would you be satisfied? Is that a successful offseason for you?
No, absolutely not. Just because of the promises they made that we're going to swing for the fences and this is when we have the most fun. And if Dobson was great, it's a fantastic move, good for them, but that's not about
a home run.
A home run, yeah, it's a home run, but that's not a home run for the whole organization. It's a home run as a move on its own. You need to go get your 2C. The 2C is the position that mattered the most, and we went to get a right defenseman. Fine, it's one of the better moves.
So you're not comfortable at all running it back with Kirby Doc trying to fill that role?
No.
As a last resort, I am.
I am as well.
But yeah, okay, fine. As a last resort, yes, but like not now. I'm sorry. It's like the third year now that we're gonna try with
I
him.
wouldn't if I'm them. I wouldn't mortgage the rest of the future or the big plan to go get a 2C that is gonna address the need now. And
it has to be a perfect fit.
It has to be a perfect fit.
It has to be a home run.
Yeah.
It has to be a home run, and
it could even be a triple. But you know what I mean? Like if we're gonna use baseball terms, it's gotta be somebody that fits. In a perfect world, guys, it's the jersey behind me, and we have him, and the Montreal Canadiens have him, and I get to watch him.
I don't think Carey Price could play center, man. I don't know. I don't think
we know who we're
You never know.
about.
You never know.
It's Sidney
Crosby is a pipe dream.
You never know.
Perfect world.
Not even in your perfect world is it happening.
Anything could happen.
Listen, sure.
Oh man, I'm a firm believer that they should push the hardest they can for Sidney Crosby.
Yes, they should. Yes, they absolutely should. But I think we all have to be a little bit more realistic with the fact that it is the most improbable thing to happen. You're far more likely to see a thing like I've been seeing floating around, a Vincent Trocheck as a guy coming in. And that is even taking into account the fact that pretty sure they're not going to trade with New York.
So I just want to say that Spit and Chicklets, which we all know who that podcast and those group of guys have now reposted George Larac's tweet earlier on that Crosby, there's a good chance that he will play elsewhere.
Yeah, that elsewhere, if there is an elsewhere, is Colorado.
The only reason why I'm putting a bit more weight in this now, the only reason why is because the guys from Spit and Chicklets have played with Sid, and there's a friendship there. So if they're reposting
if they're reposting it for clicks, first off, let's get this
guys. It's not going to happen.
Let's get that clear.
Mario is not going to let this happen.
Well, look, he's not an owner yet.
He's fighting to get ownership again, and I don't see it. I don't see it.
It honestly,
I would love it. I would love it. It'd be the craziest thing in the world. I would love it. But
he deserves it. He deserves to go somewhere else and get a chance at the cup. He deserves it.
If Crosby moves, why not Montreal? Like, why not? The stars align. I think it would be the perfect fit. And if he moves, is it a 50-50? Is it less? I would say it's a lot less than 50-50. I think that probably a guy like Sidney Crosby, the way he is, his character, it seems to say that he's going to be playing out his career, loyal guy, sticking in Pittsburgh. But if he does move, why not make it Montreal? I understand the Colorado connection. You could talk about Nathan McKinnon, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day...
Is Colorado more likely to win the Stanley Cup than Montreal?
Yeah.
Yeah, also. But the guy has...
That's why it's more likely Colorado.
I say Sidney Crosby goes to the Montreal Canadiens, or if there's an offer, and I'm Kent Hughes, I'm putting that unprotected 2026 first-round pick as a piece right away, not even hesitating on it for Sidney Crosby for 2 years of Crosby.
I would do that as well.
Because you put Crosby, now you're a playoff team. Barring some catastrophic injuries, you're a playoff team, so that pick, you're not getting Gavin McKenna. Forget it.
Yeah.
All right?
That's fine.
Put that there. You're going to have to start throwing in roster players to make the money work. So Kirby Dach goes because might as well. You're done.
Why would they want Kirby Dach?
Because they're going for futures on a rebuild now. They're going to take young pieces that could also play now. So why not bank on somebody that's costing under $4 million and they're going to take the chance? It's a high risk, high reward type of situation. I'm not saying that he's the focal piece, but he's there. You're putting him in there.
Well, your next pieces better be really good. Go on. Go on.
You'd have to put one of the
late first in 2026 and Kirby Dach so far for Sidney Crosby. I'm just okay. Proceed.
But you have to understand, Matt. A late first in 2026 or a mid round pick again in 2026 is one of the deepest drafts since Bedard.
If you're not talking to me about a top 5, I don't care. Really, it's a crapshoot. You have right now framed me as this team is now a playoff team, which means the pick will be
take Patrick Laine. I don't care.
Okay, so a late first in 2026, Kirby Dach, who's busted, and Patrick Laine.
What do you think Colorado would offer for Sidney Crosby?
That's what I was going to ask.
Picks?
I'd assume so far.
Girard is going to do it. He's going to move that needle, right?
So what could Colorado realistically offer more than Montreal?
I don't know Colorado's team well enough, but I can promise you it's better than what he just said.
No, it's not. Because remember, Sidney Crosby, if he decides to move, he chooses exactly where he wants to go.
let's pretend for a second, because you're right. This is all contingent on where he wants to go. He calls his shot. If he's like, I want to be a Hab, then he's going to be a Hab for whatever the Habs are going to pay.
What do you think they're going to get for him?
Okay, but let's pretend for a second he goes to Kyle Dubas and he says, Kyle, I want to go to either team.
God, isn't that the most scary? Isn't that the scariest thought that the league's best player, well, at one point best player, is in the hands of Kyle Dubas?
I mean, it's wild. It's wild. I just listen. I'm breaking your balls a little bit, but like, yeah, ultimately, you almost give anything they ask, even though he's picking you. Kyle Dubas will say, "I just won't trade him."
I would not trade any of the core pieces.
No,
at all.
Obviously.
I'd be trading players that still have value, that are still young enough to make an impact on a team, to go with the team as it's rebuilding and say, here's the unprotected first, here's a couple of seconds. We'll make a package work, because at the end of the day, they're not talking from a position of strength, even if it's Sidney Crosby.
I again, that will balance things a little bit. It'll help a little bit, but fundamentally, they don't have to trade him.
They don't have to, but if the guy comes out and says, I want to have a chance to Stanley Cup for everything he's done for an organization, they do it.
If he wants to have a chance for a Stanley Cup, do you honestly think he's going to go up to management and say, trade me to the Canadiens?
Depends how much you believe whether Sidney Crosby and having Dobson now really boosts the team to another level.
I
personally think that maybe it's not a Stanley Cup, maybe not, but they're definitely getting past the first round. They gave Washington a problem. I would say you had Sidney Crosby and have
Washington
Dobson,
beat them 4-1. What problem?
Yeah, they had no problem.
That's not fair. You can't.
You didn't watch the games?
That's not fair.
Yeah, I watched the games, but I also know that at the end of the day, I quote a movie you might have heard of, Fast and Furious. It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning, and they won.
The moment that you just gave that quote, you just lost credibility for the next 5 minutes.
No, that's a great quote from a great film.
All right. A great film? Oh, boy.
I don't know about a great film, Matt. I don't know about a great film.
Hey, the first one wasn't bad. I'm not here to debate that.
Is that if clearly Crosby would choose his destination. So if he's choosing his destination, it's not like they could go out and say it's Sidney Crosby or 5, 6, 7 years ago, where you look and you say, okay, it's carte blanche. He could go wherever he wants. You can do whatever you want and whatnot. It's really he goes. The rumored teams that if Crosby were to make himself available, it comes down to about two. One person or one account mentioned the Leafs, which is not going to happen. But let's just say it's two teams, Colorado and Montreal. So if you look and he says, okay, any one of those two teams I'm okay with, Montreal's definitely going to have the better pieces to give. That's where Pittsburgh is going, because they're the only team that wants to get worse. They're a team that wants to get worse so that they have the real chance of McKenna next year. They're looking for that route. They want to do the McKenna thing. They want to tank. And you can't tank if you still have Erik Karlsson, Malkin, Rust, Crosby. You could be bad, but they won't tank.
So another timeout. Sorry, just because I think this is topical again. So Adam Sandler wearing a Boston Bruins jersey just announced that pick 7, James Hagen goes to Boston. So there goes that dream for the Islanders.
Weren't able to make the
move.
So they'll just have to live with that first overall pick in 16 and 17, I guess. Oh shucks. That sucks.
I gotta say this. So sorry, Isles fans, but you got.
At least it's not far from home. It's pretty close.
Officially,
still on the East Coast, It's pretty good.
So that's interesting. Anyways, listen, I bring it back to this whole Crosby thing. I mean, it'd be more than crazy. It'd be the most unbelievable, wonderful thing. I just can't see it happening, which means now I go back to my original question that I posed to Luca. I asked you guys to end it off here. If you find at the end of the offseason, they tried, they didn't want to sell the farm, whatever, and they're going to run it with Kirby Dach as your 2C, and ultimately the only move that they truly made was bringing in Dobson. Success or fail?
It's a success. I think it's a success regardless. I think the Noah Dobson was swing for the fences, and they got their guy in Noah Dobson. I think ultimately you want to see more, and I'm a big believer that you need a 2C, absolutely. But I think at the end of the day, you can wait on that. Like Vito said, they're exiting the rebuild. They have time to go and do it. And you don't want to rush a guy and stretch him, or get a guy that's and try to fit him in as 2C. You need to make do your due diligence and make your decision wisely. So I don't think necessarily if the market is as dry as it is, as everyone says it is. Look, I think it's fine. You go with Noah Dobson and you kind of move on. It's disappointing from a fan perspective because you want to see more action and you want to see this. But at the end of the day, when you look back at it, this is going to be a successful offseason regardless, just right off the gate. Out the gate.
Vito?
Even if they don't address the 2C, they have a player that they could slot in for now. And getting just Dobson alone, we were talking about Rasmus Anderson. We were talking about just addressing the right side. Dobson is, in my opinion, given the age and what he's able to do, is an upgrade on Anderson and is definitely an upgrade on David Savard. Right? So why am I saying that?
Because out of the league for 5 seconds, you got to hit him like that.
Yeah, but the point is that when the Habs went into the season, they had David Savard as their leading right-hand defenseman. He was their guy. And then they eventually got Carey. Now it's Dobson. They got one of the best defensemen in the league, one of the best young defensemen that are entering their prime. We said it's a home run. So, yes, it's a success no matter how you spin it. Kent Hughes the Montreal Canadiens won a sweepstakes for a player. When was the last time we have said this?
I can't remember.
When's
the last time?
It's been a minute.
And it's not for like a 35-year-old or 34-year-old.
No, he's a top defenseman. I mean, anybody who says otherwise is a liar. Yeah, it's solid. I'm right there with you. I think Kent can go put the little umbrella in his drink, sit back for the rest of the summer, and ultimately we'll look back and say, it would have been nice for a little bit more action. But no, you've already won. That's pretty great on June 27th to say that you've already won your offseason. That is some really good business. And free agency hasn't even started yet, and we don't know what's going to happen. So more to come. We'll do another one of these in a couple days once free agency happens, maybe while it's happening. I don't know.
Or if a big blockbuster happens, we might do a short clip.
Yeah, of course. We'll be back. But in the meantime, of course, as always, please, if you made it this far, our little question to you, let us know in the comments below your feelings on the Noah Dobson trade. How do you feel about him coming over, about what it costs to get him, about what it is the contract that was given? Very curious to know. And who you think the Habs are going to land as a 2C, if anyone at all. Very curious to know in the comments below. Thanks for sticking with us on a little bit of a longer one here. Lots of excitement. We're going to get back to watching the draft now. So for Dave, Luca, and Vito, I'm Matt. And this was
Get Pucked.